Hi, I'm Jessica Taylor from Ink It Up with Jessica, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use embossing powder on the edges of your cardstock for an easy wow. I used gold embossing powder on this Thinking of You card, and this is a technique that I think will look amazing on Christmas cards as well. You're going to start with your cardstock shape. I used a deckled circle die to cut out basic white cardstock. For this card, I did my stamping and coloring first, then decided to add the embossing powder around the edges. But at least the first time you try this, I would do the heat embossing first to see how you like it before you go to the trouble of stamping and coloring. Of course, this will work on any shape or color of cardstock. Okay, now you're going to get your heat embossing tools set up. You're going to need a heat tool to heat the embossing powder. You're going to need embossing powder and an ink that stays wet long enough to hold the powder in place, like Versamark ink. I also like to use an embossing buddy to keep static away, and it limits the powder sticking where you don't want it. I also like to have two pieces of paper. You can use a Tupperware container or a specific powder tray to collect your embossing powder, but sometimes paper is just the easiest to clean up. So I'm going to take one of my pieces of paper. Again, this is just regular computer paper, printer paper, whatever you want to call it. I just want to give it a nice crease. This is what I'm going to use to funnel the embossing powder back into my container. First, I'll take the embossing buddy and run it all over my cardstock. This just lays down a powder, kind of like baby powder, I guess, that makes the embossing powder not stick everywhere. This is a little bit trickier because we're embossing all around the edges, but here we go. You're going to just roll the edges in your Versamark pad. So I'm just holding the circle between my thumb and my finger, and I'm going to tilt it a little bit so a little bit more embossing powder gets on the front of my circle so that you'll be able to see the powder more. So you'll want to do that as much as you want. You can't really see it. It's just a little bit shiny around the edges. So you just have to have a little faith that it's turning out how you want it to. And then I just want to keep my fingers away from the Versamark part of it. I'll open my embossing powder and then just kind of sprinkle it around the edges. Like so. So then here's kind of the tricky part too, is that you're going to want to pick your circle up carefully and grab it in the middle again. And then you're just going to, sometimes I flick it, sometimes I tap it off. Sometimes there might be areas where you want more embossing powder, so you can just kind of scoop some more on there and move it around until it's stuck as much as you want it. Okay. Then I might take just a watercolor brush and wipe some more off in the middle. A little bit extra is okay, and I don't mind it at all, but I don't want big clumps of it in the middle. Now I am going to clean up my embossing powder so I don't make an even bigger mess of it. So I'm just going to funnel it down towards the center fold of that paper and then just let it fall back into the container. Now this, if I was going to do a bunch of these, I would keep this out and keep using it. I'm just going to fold it and throw it away so I don't make a big mess. Put the lid back on. And then again, the tricky part is keeping your fingers in the middle of this. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to emboss, and you're going to see that the powder turns shiny as it's embossed. So I'm not sure if you can see that on the video, but it's basically turning from a powder to a shiny, kind of solid embossed piece. And if you look at it up close, you can see the tiny grains of the powder until it turns shiny, and then it smooths out. So you just want to move your piece around until you have all of the powder melted. And there you go. You've got some fancy edges to try on your next card. Want more embossing tips? Watch this video next.